Today we'll be disassembling a Yamaha TTR125 motor. We'll be taking apart the top end, and we'll be taking apart the clutches, the stator, and the flywheel, and splitting the cases, taking the transmission apart. So the first thing we're going to do is pull this head off. We have already removed a couple head bolts. Just to save some time, we'll finish removing the head bolts, 12 millimeters. And that head bolt is off. Next thing we'll want to do is pull this cam chain tensioner, and that's two 8mm bolts here. And that'll relieve some of the tension that is on the cam chain. There's two Allen heads, 5mm Allen heads that we'll need to loosen here to finish taking that head off. Now for a valve adjustment, all you'll need to do is pull this cap here, and your sprocket cover. And we did that in another video. Check that out if you're wondering how to check the valves on a TTR125. So we'll pull those out, the cam sprocket off. That's a 17mm. And then we'll just let that cam chain tensioner, or that cam chain, drop down in the head, but we want to make sure we get this sprocket pulled off here. Or that chain will drop down into the case. Okay, there's the head there. Here is the head gasket. And somebody had already disassembled this one. The piston is out of here on this one. Make sure these valves seat properly. If they don't, we need to replace those valves, cut new seats in there. Your intake boot here, this looks to be in good condition. A lot of times these crack. We'll actually pull this off. 5mm Allen again. There's your intake boot there. You want to make sure when you're riding that you have this cap on here. Otherwise you're sucking direct air in. There's your head. Now your cylinder is just going to pull off. Now there's no more bolts holding that on. The cylinder's got some scoring on it, you can see there. So this will need to be either bored out or replaced. Here's your cam chain that fell down in there. Now you won't be able to turn this motor on over with this cam chain stuck down here, and you don't want to do that. You don't want to even try it. It could break those engine cases. So next what we're going to do is pull this stator cover. 8mm bolts all the way around this one. Never want to reuse the gasket, so you can just throw the gaskets away. Engine drain bolt is right here. So when you're changing oil in it, that's the bolt you'll remove. The stator wires were cut on this. A longer lead to these wires on yours. And this will be magnetic, so sometimes a little difficult to pull apart. And there's your stator there. Got your wires coming out there. It's your stator cover. Here's your flywheel. And we'll have to have a special pull to pull that flywheel off. We'll do that in this video. We have a way of holding this. Little screws, they don't have to be terribly tight. They are just to hold this spacer on. And I'll show you how to pull this front sprocket here. Countershaft Sprocket is what the technical term is. So these little Allens, you'll remove these. Now this spacer here, you'll turn it about 1/8 of a turn until the splines line up, and then pull it off. You won't be able to just pull directly off when you remove these Allens, because the splines aren't lined up right here. So once you do that, you can pull this sprocket, and that thing is trash. Okay, we'll pull the flywheel nut off here. 17mm nut. This is all magnetic. So this puller is something that you can rent at most auto parts stores. Looks like this here. This is the EverTouch 67007, and here is the claw part of it. Now what I like to do is put this nut back on, that way it doesn't damage up those threads. 8mm bolts here that you'll use, they're the same threads as your head bolts. So same threads as this. Sometimes what I do, if I'm not using the heads again, I'll use these bolts. They're a little bit longer, but you need 3 of them. And you want to make sure that they're threaded in all the way. You don't want to over tighten these to where they're getting into parts behind the flywheel, but you want to make sure they're good and tight. If they're not, they will pull out of your flywheel, ruin your flywheel, and making it difficult to pull the flywheel. Okay, once you get those tightened up as far as they'll go, put a socket on here, and you'll want an